Okay, we'll just let it wait a few minutes for a few people to show up, and we'll get started. So, just as a quick overview of what went on so far, we went through some interactions I've had with the police, and why I don't talk to them. I mean, when you're on the side of the road, obviously you do whatever they want to do. But I always get a police report, and then I use that as evidence to file criminal complaints against them. And in Texas and other places, I think it's provable in every state. But I know it's provable in Canada, in Alberta, and in Texas that a traffic stop is a civil matter, and they don't have probable cause to do anything, and so I just sue them and file criminal complaints, and my criminal complaints trump any of their civil litigation garbage, and they don't want to sue you because they don't want to come out that it's not there's no contract. You know, they're a bunch of thieves and pirates. Anyways, so we went through on Friday the Texas codes to show that it's a civil matter, and and they can't put you in jail over it. And so, you know, I don't show up. I have nothing but contempt for the so-called court. I'll file a challenge to jurisdiction that's a very good one that's done by Randy Kelton, and then a demand for an examining trial, which is also done by Randy Kelton, which is available in the show notes of this video and the other ones from yesterday. And then I file a bunch of criminal complaints, and I'll go in there with, you know, maybe 50, depending on the police report. If I get lots of names in that police report, they all get invited. And then I send the criminal complaints to the Texas State Police, or the Texas State Commission on Law Enforcement, or the FBI. They'll all go to the FBI. They'll all go to the Provost Marshal General in Washington, D.C., in the Pentagon. And I can't tell you how many things have happened when I did that stuff. A good example is I have cashapp, so if you want to send me donations for cashapp, you can. There was a period of time, probably 2 or 3 years ago, when cashapp was not allowing me access to the app without putting in a social security number, and I filed a criminal complaint against them for war crimes, coercing information as none of their business, and sent it to the Pentagon and left it 6 months. And then when next time I logged into cashapp, all of a sudden they didn't want a social security number anymore. It's amazing how that works. And so this morning we talked about some criminal complaints that I filed against all the bar members. Okay, the bar members are the low-hanging fruit. Okay, the bar members are the ones that are out there, and they're the ones that are easy to go after. And you file criminal complaints against them, and then if you really want to go after them, you use the criminal complaints as evidence for bar grievances, and file those. Anyways, this morning we went through the criminal complaints that I filed against 4 bar members on the Board of Regents for the University of Texas, and they're deemed to know the law. I filed one for it was a friend of mine friend of mine's wife, that she was a nurse at the University of Texas MD Anderson Medical Center, Cancer Center, MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston, Texas, and she had been working there for 20 years, more than 20 years, getting ready to retire here pretty soon, and they were threatening her, told her to take the job or they're going to fire her. And so I went and filed 4 war crimes complaints against 4 bar members that are on the Board of Regents for the University of Texas. And I didn't even attach the email. They actually sent me the email, but they asked me not to do anything, and so I didn't feel like I could use the email. But I did reference the email in the criminal complaints, and I sent the criminal complaints to the usual places: Provost Marshal General in Washington, D.C., FBI, and Texas State Police. And what happened about 2 weeks later? What happened is she got notified that she was granted an exemption, and her supervisor sent her the email, and yet the supervisor, she hadn't applied for the exemption, and her supervisor had applied for the exemption, and it was denied. And then over the next day or two, they asked everybody who had previously applied for exemptions to reapply, and then they they basically lost interest in doing the jobs. They stopped doing them. And so it's an experimental it's a medical experiment. It's a war crime. So that's the issues that I brought up. The 4 criminal complaints were war crimes, subjecting her to their satanic religious ceremonies, violating rights under color of law, and conspiracy to threaten, coerce, injure, and intimidate someone in the free exercise of their rights. And obviously, one or more of those got their attention. They're all felonies. The war crimes, maximum penalty in a war crime is death. If death happens to someone that's has been a victim of a war crime, then the perpetrator gets death too. And the subjecting to satanic religious ceremony, the maximum penalty is death. And actually, it's using force to deprive her of her Christian religious beliefs. What they were doing, one of the things they were doing is they were sitting around for, if you wanted to apply for a religious exemption, they would send you a questionnaire, which is an interrogatory, is what it is. That's in the court, it's called an interrogatory. And And so they send you around a questionnaire and you'd have to fill it out, and then they deny you. Well, this is not a religious belief or whatever. It doesn't matter. And that's one of the things I said in this morning and in the criminal complaints is that her religious beliefs are none of their damn business. And so anyways, so it's helped everybody in that hospital, because now nobody has to take the jab. I mean, if you want to take it, you can, but there's nobody forcing you. Anyways, so that was what's gone on so far. So today, this afternoon, we're going to go through some more criminal complaints. A lot of it is, and that's the reason I do this, quite frankly, is knowing how to explain it, okay? And that's the reason I do these videos, because, you know, other people need to know about it, and other people need to be doing it. And I would hope that some of you, at least, would use these, and you know, it's like anything. Use it or lose it. You know, if you don't assert your rights, you lose them. And I find that criminal complaints, you know, you can sue them all day long, and but they're bought and paid for whores. Matter of fact, I file criminal complaints against the judges too, and so I've got a pile of criminal complaints that's probably about 18 inches high right now. There's 2 of each in there that I had to file into a court case. This one here that you're seeing is a court case that that was actually threats against protected person under international law. That one is, and this is one that people asked about yesterday. Threats and extortion against protected person under international law. You have to understand that I'm a senator with the Republic of Texas, and well, I'll show you what their codes say. I just use their codes. So threats and extortion against a protected person under international law. In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas, as a direct descendant of the founders of the Constitution of the United States of America, as one of the posterity found in the preamble, by right of blood, I hereby declare. And this is a good example of lawyers, when I go after the lawyers, because the lawyers are deemed to know the law. Matter of fact, I want to paste something into this one. There we go. Ashley Durker is a partner in the law firm Taylor Olson Adkins Sorolla Elam LLP, which Wayne K. Olson is also a founding partner that represents the city of Euless and a bar member and deemed to know the law. And that's the reason you go after the lawyers, because they are required to know the law. And so then that's why they're that low-hanging fruit. They hate bar grievances, okay? Because the bar gets them, and the bar is completely unpredictable. You never know what the bar is going to do, they hold their bar license at the pleasure of the bar, and there's lawyers that get disbarred all the time, and so they have no idea what's going to happen, and so they're like quaking in their boots. Ashley Durker knows that properly applying the facts of the law is not discretionary, and that's Walker v. Packer, a Texas court case, and misapplying the facts to the law in a matter is an abuse of discretion and official oppression. I have reason to believe and do believe that Ashley Durker is sending threats through the mail to a protected person under international law in violation of 18 U.S.C. 878. There's, you know, I've got about 21 or 22 different criminal complaints I've made up, and I use federal and state statutes, and I use them all against. I don't use them all against some of them, but some of them, some of the criminal complaints, the lawyers are the low-hanging fruit, like suborning perjury. They're perfect for the lawyers because when these cops assault me, they're perjuring their oath of office, and the lawyers screen them for low intelligence and give them a gun and send them out to violate their own perjure their own oath of office, and they know that's what's going on, and so these lawyers are the low-hanging fruit. Anyways, I have reason to believe and do believe that Ashley Durker is sending threats through the mail to a protected person under international law, and this 878, whoever knowingly and willingly threatens to violate section 112 and 116. We'll just underline them here while we're doing them. Fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 5 years or both, except that imprisonment for a threatened assault shall not exceed 3 years. So, a protected person under international law. Okay, for the purposes of this section, a foreign official, internationally protected person, shall have the same meaning as those provided in 1116A of this title. For extortion, it's 20 years. Okay, now, so 18 U.S.C. Section 11 defines a foreign government as a government, faction, or body of insurgents. Okay, here's 18 U.S.C. Section 11. The term foreign government, as used in this title, irrespective of recognition. Okay, so the important thing for me is that I'm a senator with the Republic of Texas. And that's what they always say, well, we don't recognize you. Well, I don't need your recognition. In 18 U.S.C. 878, uses definitions found in 1116B under paragraph B2, the Republic of Texas does not need your recognition. 1116B2, okay, so this is 18 U.S.C. 1116B, okay. Small b. Here's small b for purposes of this section right here. Foreign government means the government of foreign country irrespective of recognition by the United States. Okay, so I don't need their recognition. A foreign official means President, Chief of State, Ambassador, Foreign Minister, officer of cabinet rank or above of a foreign government. Okay, well, I'm a senator and I was a charge d'affaires. Okay, that's like an ambassador. Okay. So when he enabled, actually it's she enabled, okay, because the law firm Wayne K. Olson is a founding partner of the law firm, of this law firm, and they represent the city of Euless, and she's another one of the partners. So they're profiting from the assaults that are these pigs are engaging in when they go out and assault people. So when she enabled Timothy Graham, and under Title I, Section 1, it doesn't matter whether it's he or she. when she enabled Timothy Graham to stop the demandant for having a Republic of Texas plate on his automobile, and the demandant presented his Republic of Texas diplomatic identification card, because the demandant is a senator for District 13 and was previously Speaker of the House of Representatives and of Charity Affairs, as evidenced by the copy of the commission, as evidenced by the U.S. Police narrative. The demandant dialed 911 and demanded Tarrant County Sheriff to the scene, and the call went to the Euless switchboard, and Graham's supervisors, Hurtado and Collingwood, came to the scene as his accomplice, as evidenced by the police narrative, and the Tarrant County Sheriff refused to come to the scene. The demandant read to Graham and Hurtado and Collingwood parts of the Texas Penal Code 39.03, telling them they're engaged in official oppression. They are required to know the Euless military police are not authorized to enforce the transportation code, and they stopped me for no registration. Okay, and that's transportation code. And they're all required to know that no officer is authorized to enforce the transportation code after the military police officers, under instruction of the military chief of police, Mike Brown, and their bar members Stacy White and Wayne K. Olson, stopped the demandant for transportation code offenses, like having a Republic of Texas plate on an automobile, expired registration, or speeding, and their military police are not authorized to enforce the transportation code. And so then true copies of the warrant threat letters and email are attached, all of which are incorporated herein by reference in their entirety. They dragged the demandant into their torture chamber jail, where they engaged in torture with their forced fingerprinting, forced feeding poisons, medical experiments, forced identification, aggravated kidnappings, aggravated assaults, and their threats and their denial of due process, all of which is for revenue for their criminal corporations: the City of Colleyville, the City of North Richland Hills, the City of Grapevine, City of Lake Worth, City of Bedford, City of Euless, City of Azle, City of Fort Worth, and Deer Park Cash Cow LLC, masquerading as the state of Texas. And so that's essentially it, okay? Because I'm a senator with the Republic of Texas, I don't need their recognition. I am a foreign government. I am a official of a foreign government. And I'm a foreign official, and so they have a problem, and so somebody was asking yesterday about that one, and so that's what that one's all about. And we'll go through another one here that I do, which is this one. There we go. Violent attack, assault, threats to protected persons under international law. These are all going to get filed in that court case that I got going on, and then I'll send out copies. I send a copy to the Texas State Police. The Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. If it's a cop, this one is for a cop, so his will go to the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, and also the FBI, and the Provost Marshal General in Washington, D.C. gets a copy too. As a direct descendant of the founders of the Constitution of the United States of America, and as one of the posterity found in the preamble, by right of blood, I hereby declare I have reason to believe and do believe that Edgar Hurtado, Euless Police Sergeant number 357, made a violent attack upon the demandant and threatened, arrested, and imprisoned a protected person under international law in violation of 18 U.S.C. Section 112, protection of foreign officials and foreign official guests, internationally protected persons. And this is Section 112. And whoever assaults, strikes, wounds, imprisons, offers violence to a foreign official or internationally protected persons shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both. So that's pretty serious. Whoever willfully intimidates, coerces, threatens, harasses a foreign official, obstructs a foreign official in the performance of his duties, attempts to intimidate, coerce, threaten, and attach a foreign official, obstruct a foreign official in the performance of his duties within the United States and within 100 feet of a building or a premises and whole or part owned or occupied for official business for the or for diplomatic, consular, or residential purposes by a foreign government. And for purposes of this section, it says to go to 1116, right? And we just read that. Matter of fact, I think is it down here? No, it's not. Okay, so 18 U.S.C. 11 defines a foreign government as a government, faction, or body of insurgents irrespective of a recognition. 18 U.S.C. 112 uses definitions found in 18 U.S.C. 1116b. Oh, here's 1116b. Yeah, this is 1116b. Foreign official. Foreign government is irrespective of recognition. Foreign official right. So President, Vice President, Prime Minister, Ambassador, Foreign Minister, other officer of cabinet rank or above of a foreign government, or Chief Executive Officer of an international organization, or any person who has previously served in such capacity, and any member of his family while in the United States. So, right there. When he and Timothy Graham stopped a demandant for having a Republic of Texas plate on his automobile, and the demandant represented his Republic of Texas diplomatic identification card because the demandant is a senator for District 13 and previously Speaker of the House of Representatives and in charge of the affairs, as evidenced by the copy of the commission, as evidenced by the U.S. Police Department narrative, the demandant dialed 911 and demanded the Tarrant County Sheriff to the scene, and the call went to the U.S. switchboard, and Graham's supervisors, Sergeant Hurtado and Collywood, came to the scene as his accomplices, as evidenced by the police narrative, and the Tarrant County Sheriff refused to come to the scene, and demandant read to Graham, Hurtado, and Collywood parts of Texas Penal Code 39.03, telling them they're engaged in official oppression, and they're all required to know that U.S. military police are not authorized to enforce the Texas Transportation Code, as evidenced by the email from the Tarrant County Sheriff's Public Information Officer. True copies of the police narrative and the email from the Tarrant County Sheriff's Public Information Officer are attached here too, all of which are incorporated herein by reference in their entirety, against the peace and dignity of the state. And so, this one's a short one too. And see if there's any questions. If you send me an email, I'll send it to you. My email address is engineerwin@gmail.com. Or no, not at Gmail. Don't use that one. At yahoo.com. Engineerwin@yahoo.com. All of these documents actually are linked below this video, so I don't need to send it to you. You go in the show notes for this video, the one from this morning and the ones from yesterday, and these documents are all there. Okay, so you'll be able to get them there. And when you go to get them, don't ask me for permission to get access, because I'm not going to give it to you. What you do is you download the video onto your hard drive, or not the video, the email, or the file. You download their Word files is what they are. You download them onto your hard drive, and then you'll have them, and you can do with them what you wish. And but I will not give access to these documents. People send me emails all the time asking for access. Sorry, I'm not giving it to you. Download the file and you'll have it on your hard drive. And that's all you have to do is download the file. Now, if anybody's interested in the Republic of Texas, we meet Our Congress meets the second Saturday of every month in Keene, Texas. Our website is thetexasrepublic.com, and you can go there, and there's a map on how to find the place that we meet. It can be kind of hard to find sometimes, so the map is the best way to do it. If you want to come and find out what we're all about, I would suggest you come and check us out. We do have meetings every Tuesday in the mid-cities area of Dallas, Fort Worth, near the DFW airport. Usually it's like Bedford, or maybe Euless, or maybe Colleyville, or South Lake. You know, there'll be usually we meet, there's a restaurant that has a room that they'll let us have, and everybody buys a meal, and we meet and we talk about things. And that's every Tuesday. And that's really not a Republic of Texas meeting, although a lot of Republic of Texas people go to that meeting, but there's other people that go to it too. And so, and they talk about politics. They'll invite speakers in, political candidates. They'll invite all sorts of interesting people. Some of those videos that I've uploaded on YouTube are from that meeting. And so if anybody's interested, you're welcome to come. What I would suggest, it's not that Texas is not authorized to enforce the transportation code. What it is that only the Texas State Police can enforce the transportation code, or 5 officers that are employed by the county commissioners through the county sheriff can enforce the transportation code. We went through that yesterday. I would suggest you go through that video. If we have time, we can go through that document. There's a challenge to jurisdiction that I file into their court case that explains that, we can, if we have time tomorrow, we can go through that again if you wish. But that's already up there in the video yesterday. It's a challenge to jurisdiction, and it goes through why that they're not authorized unless in Tarrant County. If you remember, in this document here, I explained that they're not authorized to enforce the transportation code as evidence from the email from the Tarrant County Sheriff's Office. And so what I can do is maybe pull up that email, but even that email doesn't really tell you a lot. So let me see what I can do here. I'll see if I can. Section 701 of the Texas Transportation Code. There it is, right there. So it doesn't really say a lot here, but what I did is I sent the Tarrant County Public Information Officer an email, provide the names and titles of everyone who's appointed a county traffic officer under Texas Transportation Code section 701 for the last year, and they don't have any. So once you understand the program in that document, there's a challenge to jurisdiction that's in the show notes of this video, and if you read that thing, it goes through and explains how that program is administered through the county commissioners and the county sheriff. And they can appoint up to 5 traffic officers in a county, and maybe 2 more if the county has more than 2 million people in it. And so that's 7. And they're saying here they don't have any. So that means that none of them, the county traffic officers are not. It's administered, but by the county commissioners and the county sheriff, but they don't have to be county sheriffs. They can be a city cop, they can be any peace officer can do the job, and but they have to have, there's a bunch of training requirements, and they don't, and that's the problem, I think, is that they don't, it's too much hassle to do all the training and stuff like that, and so they don't bother with it. So, anyways, that's the public information request. So they don't have authority to enforce the transportation code, is the bottom line. So I am a senator with the Republic of Texas, and I can okay, we'll go through some other ones here. Let's go through this one about piracy. This is another one I like to file on. In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas, as a direct descendant of the founders of the Constitution of the United States of America, and as one of the posterity found in the preamble, by right of blood, I hereby declare, I have reason to believe and do believe that A. Eccles Kirksey, Euless Jailer, is a pirate operating on the high seas of commerce in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1652, Citizens of Pirates. Whoever, being a citizen of the United States, commits any murder, robbery, or any act of hostility against the United States or against any citizen thereof on the high seas under color of any commission from any foreign prince, state, or on pretense of authority from any person as a pirate, shall be imprisoned for life. That's pretty serious. On the high seas of commerce and privateers, in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1654, arming and serving on privateers. Whoever, being a citizen of the United States, without the limits thereof, fits out and arms or attempts to fit out and arm, or is concerned in furnishing, fitting out, or arming any private vessel of war or privateer, with intent that such vessel shall be employed to cruise or commit hostilities upon citizens of the United States or their property, causing injury by a violation of constitutional law, charter, and contract by sovereigns, okay, and this is 18 U.S.C. 1655, Whoever being a seaman lays violent hands upon his commander to hinder and prevent his fighting in defense of his vessel or goods entrusted to him is a pirate, and shall be imprisoned for life. Assault on commander and piracy. No is no, and to repeat and encourage coercion, deception, trickery without full disclosure is fraud, punishable under 18 U.S.C. 1001. Whoever, in any manner within the jurisdiction of the executive, legislative, judicial branch of the government, knowingly and willingly falsifies, conceals, covers up any trick, scheme, or device a material fact, makes any materially false, fictitious, fraudulent statement or representation, makes or uses any false writing or document knowing the same to contain any materially false, fictitious, fraudulent statement or entry. That's all the stuff they're doing. Shall be fined under this title, imprisoned not more than 5 years, or if the offense involves international or domestic terrorism, imprisoned not more than 8 years, or both. If the matter relates to an offense under and other crimes of treason, Article 3, Section 3. Treason against the United States shall consist only in levying war against them or adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. No person shall be convicted of treason unless on the testimony of 2 witnesses of the same overt act or on confession in open court. So, giving aid and comfort to the enemies in a time of war. That's pretty serious right there. And if you think about it, are we at war right now? I think we are. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 6, counterfeiting. To provide for the punishment of counterfeiting securities and current coin in the United States. Because they insisted on assaulting with the respondent with zip codes, which are federal region, under paragraph 3 of 18 U.S.C. Section 7. Any lands reserved and acquired for the use by the United States under the exclusive and concurrent jurisdiction or place purchased or otherwise the term special maritime territorial jurisdiction of the United States as used in this title includes any vehicle used or designated for flight, residences in foreign states, that's the U.S. Any vessel registered, licensed, enrolled under the laws of the United States being on voyage upon the waters of the Great Lakes or the waters connecting them upon the St. Lawrence River, paragraph 1, any vessel belonging in whole or in part to the United States or any citizen thereof, to any corporation created by or under the laws of the United States or of any state, territory, district, or possession thereof. Such vessel is within the admiralty and maritime jurisdiction of the United States and out of the jurisdiction of any particular state. Olson and Graham are in receipt of pirated property in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1660. Receipt of pirated property when they seized the demandant's private automobile and then demanded over $400 in fake money and Federal Reserve notes, military scrip, forced loans to get it back. Whoever without lawful authority receives or takes into custody any vessel, goods, or other property feloniously taken by any robber or pirate against the laws of the United States, knowing the same to have been feloniously taken, shall be imprisoned not more than 10 years. The Constitution of the United States is the supreme law of the land and the very basis of all law. Article 6, Clause 2, this Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land. This article is well known as the Supremacy Clause and states there is common law by compact called the Articles of Confederation, by a league of friendship among all Americans with contracts and equal right to life, liberty, and property as the Creator grants. The United States creates legislative laws granted by the Constitution of the United States in Article 6 and territorial limits restricted by Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 to a very limited jurisdiction, 10 miles square. The sovereign, all Americans, have a right to consent or not consent, Federalist Paper 22, without the consent of full understanding it is the constitutional crime of privateering. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 10, to define and punish piracies, felonies committed on the high seas, and offenses against the law of nations. The defendant does not consent to legislative law. Common law is the league of friendship to be honored. Graham is required to know he's not authorized to enforce Texas Transportation Code as evidenced by the email from the Tarrant County Sheriff's Public Information Officer, and Graham is required to know that he conspired with Collingwood and Hurtado, Nilsson, Eccles, Kersey, under instructions from Euless Chief of Police Mike Brown, Linda Martin, Mayor Ken Paxton, Texas Attorney General, to enforce the Transportation Code by stopping me from having a public Texas plate on my automobile. True copies of the police narrative, threat letters, and email are attached hereto, all of which are incorporated herein by reference in their entirety, against the peace and dignity of the state. So that's piracy. And then I attach my evidence. And then I take it down and file it. And then I send everybody and their brother a copy. So anyways, that's piracy. So there's lots of stuff you can go after them for. My book is now available, Trump, a True American Patriot or Not. Mike Blackwell asked me to read the book, or not read it, to write it. And it actually took me about 2 weeks to write the thing, but then Mike had to babysit me through the process of getting it published. So I put him down as a co-publisher, or co-author, because you know, it took about 6 months to get it down to where we were ready to publish, and Mike was helped me out with that. So on the back of the book, it kind of summarizes it much better than I could. It's actually, the back is not written by me. Mike hired a company to help us with this, and they're the ones that wrote this. And so I'll read it, and because it says it much better than it says, it nails it pretty good in my opinion. What truly matters is not which party controls our government, but whether our government is controlled by the people. At the center of this movement is a crucial conviction that a nation exists to serve its citizens. That's a quote from Donald Trump at the 2016 inaugural address, and he goes on to say, For too long, a small group of our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government at the cost of its citizens. Washington flourished, but the insiders refused to share in its wealth. Politicians prospered, but allowed our jobs to leave and our factories to close. Not anymore. And so that was all taken from the inaugural address, and then the publisher, the company that was hired to help us with this publishing this book, put the following: in Trump, a true American patriot or not, Glenn Fern and Mike Blackwell reveal the depths of corruption, deceit, and manipulation infesting our political system for hundreds of years, regardless of political affiliation. Read the hard evidence that exposes how our elected officials sold Americans into slavery. Understand the Founding Fathers' true intent when they formed our republic and form of government. Discover the influence of the satanic Roman cult on our politicians and political system. Does Donald Trump want to transfer power back to we the people? In Trump, you will see the great battle that is upon us. And I think they nailed it there. We do. We have a great battle that is upon us. It's going to last for many years. If you listen to Cliff High, he says it's going to be like 18 years. And so that wouldn't surprise me. So it'll probably outlive me. And if it doesn't, if I'm still here when it's all done, then that's good. I'm not complaining, don't get me wrong. But so a lot of it is what I did was, because it only took 2 weeks, I mean, I just basically took a lawsuit and then I modified it a little bit and turned it into the book. And so most of it is provable facts. It's about 95% provable facts. There's a little bit of opinion, not much, but for example, I don't know how many of you have heard of Jerome Corsi. He's got a YouTube channel. He's got a political science PhD in political science from Harvard University. He's a pretty smart guy. He lives up in the Northeast. He's written a bunch of books. Anyways, there's a YouTube video. He's got a YouTube channel. There's a YouTube video with him where he says that in 2015, 5 generals came to see him, and they said that there was a group of generals in the Pentagon that were going to overthrow Obama. And he said, well, you can do that if you want, but you might want to go talk to Donald Trump first. And 3 months later, he gets a phone call. They decided not to overthrow Obama because Donald Trump had agreed to run for president. And so what my point is that now that's all provable facts. So it's my opinion. This is my opinion, and it's in the book. It's my opinion that the entire Trump presidency was a giant military psyop. And the military studies warfare. There's a war college. Cliff High talks about his dad going to the war college. If you talk to any officer in the military, they know about the war college. Many of them have attended it. So they study warfare, and which they should. And the best war is one where there's not a shot fired. And Sun Tzu, read Sun Tzu, and The Art of War. And so I think that when Trump was in the White House, he'd send out a tweet, and it's like he's fishing, and they'd take the bait and he'd reel them in. That's my opinion. You can order the book from Amazon.com or my website. It's $40 plus shipping. I prefer you order from my website, SovereigntyInternational.fyi. Amazon.com does not provide autographed books. If you want the book autographed, order from my website. But don't forget to let me know what you want the autograph to say, if you have a preference. If you want to know the origins of the deep state, who's behind it, it's all 95% provable facts. Okay, so there's treaties, international treaties, law dictionary definitions, court cases, all sorts of stuff. Did you know that King George financed both sides of the War of Independence? He did, and it's provable. Anyways, you want to know why it's called the Trump administration. You want to know what an administration is. You want to know how Trump came to be president. You want to know who owns Congress. Congress is owned. Absolutely. They went bankrupt in 1932. And as with any corporation that goes bankrupt, they got seized by the creditors, and the creditors are Satanists. Do you want to know why they're called law enforcement officers? Do you want to know how you have become a slave? Do you want to know what the root cause of the War of Independence was? Do you want to know why every president goes to visit the Pope on their first international trip? In reality, they're not after me, they're after you. I'm just in the way. Thank you, Donald Trump. Anyways, so the book is now available, and you can order it from my website if you wish. So let's talk about extortion racket now. How they're doing an extortion racket. As a direct descendant of the founders of the Constitution of the United States of America, and as one of the posterity found in the preamble, by right of blood, I hereby declare, and this is again, I'm going after the lawyers, okay? I'm telling you, the lawyers are the low-hanging fruit. You can change everything just by going after the lawyers so they don't want to talk to you. Maybe you get some of them disbarred. I don't know if I'll get them disbarred. If I do, great. I'd love to be able to hang that on my wall. See, I got this guy disbarred. Anyways, Ashley Durker is a partner in the law firm Taylor Olson Adkins Sorolla Elam LLP, of which Wayne K. Olson is also a founding partner that represents the city of Euless and is a bar member and deemed to know the law. And officers of the court have no immunity when violating constitutional right, for they're deemed to know the law. Ashley Durker knows that properly applying the facts to the law is not discretionary. That's Walker v. Packer, Texas court case, and misapplying the facts to the law in a matter is an abuse of discretion and official oppression. I have reason to believe and do believe that Ashley Durker is engaged in extortion racket in violation of Title 18 United States Code, Section 1952. And whoever travels in interstate or foreign commerce or uses the mail or any facility in interstate or foreign commerce with intent to commit any crime of violence, promote, manage, establish, carry on, facilitate the promotion, management, establishment, carrying on of any unlawful activity as used in this section. Unlawful activity means any business enterprise involving extortion, bribery. Let's do extortion. And also Title 18 United States Code Section 1961 definition, since they're all citizens of the District of Columbia. Racketeering activity means any act or threat involving kidnapping, extortion, any act indictable under the following provisions of Title 18, Section 1341, relating to mail fraud, Section 1952, relating to racketeering, as a criminal street gang, Chapter 71, organized crime, Section 71, definitions. Combination means 3 or more persons who collaborate in carrying out criminal activities. Participants may not know each other. Membership and the combination may change from time to time. Participants may stand a wholesaler, retailer, Conspires to commit means includes an agreement constituting conspiring to commit, may be inferred from the acts of the parties. And a criminal street gang means 3 or more persons having a common identifying sign or symbol and identifiable leadership who continuously and regularly associate in the commission of criminal activities. And criminal activities means theft, aggravated kidnapping, aggravated assault, forgery. They're doing all of those. Burglary of a motor vehicle. Or any felony under these other chapters of the Texas Penal Code. Because they're engaging in theft, forgery, mail fraud, extortion, aggravated kidnapping, aggravated assault, burglary of vehicle, for profit, and conspiracy with City of Colleyville, City of North Richland Hills, City of Lake Worth, City of Bedford, City of Grapevine, City of Azle, City of Fort Worth, and others, for transportation code offenses when none of them have authority to enforce the transportation code with their fake color of law warrants, and a capias is not a warrant, which is a debt instrument, and they're all required to know that a capias fails to be a warrant, and they're all required to know that civil disputes cannot lead to probable cause. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, citing cases from the U.S. Supreme Court, the 5th, 7th, 8th, and 9th Circuits, held that by definition probable cause to arrest can only exist in relation to criminal conduct. Civil disputes cannot give rise to probable cause. And they're all demanding military scrip, Federal Reserve notes, forced loans in the form of revenue for the City of Euless and their police cart, knowing they're demanding military scrip, Federal Reserve fort notes, and their warrant letters making threats of arrest, in which they're making threats of arrest, which they're demanding 282 FMR, failure to maintain financial responsibility, 220 registration, no plate, and on each letter it says you may simply pay by credit card, which means it's fake money, Federal Reserve notes, military scrip, forced loans, and Graham is required to know that the Constitution of the United States is the supreme law of the land under Article 6, Clause 2, and they're all required to know that Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1 of the Constitution of the United States of America says that only gold or silver coin can be used in the payment of a debt, but none of them can ask for gold or silver coin because it is not in general circulation and it has not been since 1964. And Federal Reserve notes, which are intended for use in the District of Columbia only under the Gold Reserve Act of 1934. Which means they're all bringing District of Columbia codes not exceeding 10 miles square on the land of Texas in violation of Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. To exercise exclusive jurisdiction in all cases whatsoever over such district not exceeding 10 miles square, as may by session of particular states and acceptance of Congress become the seat of government of the United States, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state in which the same shall be for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. And no U.S. police officer is authorized to enforce the Transportation Code after U.S. police officers Timothy Graham, Sergeant Hurtado, Collingwood, and R. Carter, Eccles Kersey, and P. Nilsson, under instructions from the U.S. Chief of Police Mike Brown, stopped the demandant for having a Republic of Texas plate on an automobile in support of their extortion racket, and U.S. military police are not authorized to enforce the Texas Transportation Code as evidenced by the email from the Tarrant County Sheriff Public Information Officer. True copies of the warrant, threat letters, and email are attached here too, all of which are incorporated herein by reference in their entirety, and they dragged the demandant into their torture chamber jail where they engaged in torture with their forced fingerprinting, forced pleas, forced feeding poisons, forced identification, aggravated kidnappings, aggravated assault, and their threats and denials of due process, all of which is for revenue for their criminal corporations, City of Colleyville, City of North Richland Hills, City of Euless, City of Lake Worth, City of Bedford, City of Grapevine, City of Azle, City of Fort Worth, and Deer Park Cash Cow LLC masquerading as the state of Texas, and others, against the peace and dignity of the state. So that's extortion racket. I've heard that 3 grievances to get disbarred. I have heard that, or they lose their bond, which effectively disbars them. I've heard that, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I guess, you know, it's hard to get people to even to get off their ass and do any of this stuff. So you know, I don't know of any lawyers that had 3 bar grievances against them, quite frankly. Copies of these documents can be found on my website, linked under my recent YouTube videos. For a complete set of YouTube videos with private information, shares a DVD with over 50 searchable law dictionaries and other books and forums, contact me privately at engineerwin@yahoo.com. Donations to support this work are appreciated. I prefer gold or silver coin, but as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept the IOUs, the fake money, the Federal Reserve notes, the military script, the PayPal gifts, the checks, the money orders. Send me an email for particulars. Mailing threatening communications. In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas, as a direct descendant of the founders of the Constitution of the United States of America, as one of the posterity found in the preamble, by right of blood, I hereby declare. Wayne K. Olson is a partner in the law firm Taylor Olson, Adkins, Srala, Elam, LLP, of which Wayne K. Olson is also a founding partner that represents the city of Euless and a bar member and deemed to know the law. Officers of the court have no immunity when violating constitutional right, for they are deemed to know the law. Wayne K. Olson knows that properly applying the facts of the law is not discretionary, and misapplying the facts of the law in a matter is an abuse of discretion and official oppression. I have reason to believe and do believe that Wayne K. Olson, U.S. City Attorney, is sending threats through the mail. And this is 18 U.S.C. 876, mailing threatening communications. Whoever knowingly deposits in any post office or authorized depository for mail matter to be sent or delivered by the Postal Service, or knowingly causes to be delivered by the Postal Service according to the direction thereof, any communication with or without a name or designating mark subscribed thereto, addressed to any other person, containing any demand or request for ransom or reward for the release of any kidnapped person, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both. So there's no kidnapped person in this response, in this particular case, but there could be. They're threatening to kidnap. And so whoever with intent to extort from any person any money or thing of value so deposits or cause to be delivered, as aforesaid, any communication containing any threat to kidnap any person, any threat to injure the person of the addressee or of another, shall be fined, 20 years. That's a threat to kidnap. Whoever sowingly so deposits or causes to be delivered As aforesaid, any communication with or without a name, designating mark subscribed thereto, addressing to any other person, containing any threat to kidnap any person or any threat to injure the person of the addressee or of another, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 5 years of both, if such a communication is addressed to a United States judge, federal law enforcement officer, or an official who is covered by section 1114, that's me. The individual shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both. Whoever, with intent to extort any portion, any money or other thing of value, knowing so deposits or cause to be delivered, as aforesaid, any communication with or without a name, designating mark subscribing thereto, addressed to any other person, containing any threat to injure the property or reputation of the addressee or of another, or the reputation of a deceased person, or any threat or to accuse the addressee or any other person of a crime, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 2 years or both, if such a communication is addressed to a United States judge, federal law enforcement officer, or official who is covered under section 1114, 10 years. And Olson's required to know that their so-called warrant they threaten me with is actually a capus, which fails to be a warrant, but is a debt instrument and with a bond under 17 CFR section 240.15C2-12, when the evidence of the fact is that they are demanding military scrip, Federal Reserve notes in the form of revenue from the city of Grapevine, and their police court, knowing that they are demanding military scrip, Federal Reserve notes. Actually, in this case, it's US. And their police court, knowing they're demanding military scrip, Federal Reserve notes on their warrant letters, making threats of arrest, which they're demanding 282 for FMFR, failure to maintain financial responsibility, and 220 for the registration, no plate. And on each threat letter says you simply pay by credit card, which means it's fake money, Federal Reserve notes, military scrip, forced loans. And Olson's required to know that the Constitution of the United States of America is the supreme law of the land, which means they've already forged my signature to a bond in a case, and Olson's required to know they're not authorized to enforce Texas Transportation Code, as evidenced by the email from the Tarrant County Sheriff's Public Information Officer, and Olson's required to know that Graham and Collingwood and Hurtado, under instructions from U.S. Chief of Police Michael Brown, Stacy White, Lacey Britton, and others unknown, are enforcing the Transportation Code by stopping the respondent for having a Republic of Texas plate on an automobile, and Olson as an accomplice to the mailed out threat letters. True copies of the threat letters and the email are attached here too, all of which are incorporated herein by reference in their entirety against the peace and dignity of the state. Olson's putting him up to it. He's enabling it. Did we do aggravated assault yesterday? Does anybody remember? Okay, so let's do perjury of oath. We'll do aggravated assault here in a bit. Did we do that yesterday? Does anybody remember? Okay. Check out my other videos. Bankster Thieves playlist, Roman cult playlist, bankrupt corporate so-called governments, bar members 1 through 7, do-it-yourself how not to volunteer for the selective service in the draft, martial laws here, do-it-yourself no income tax, do-it-yourself free mail 1 and 2, do-it-yourself kangaroo courts 1 through 19, Canada Border Pigs playlist, bar members and their satanic connections playlist. I've got over 500 videos. And so, and if you go to my website, you will see that you go to my website, SovereigntyInternational.fyi, and there will be a link right on the front page. It says free videos, and you go to that page, and there'll be links to almost all of my YouTube videos organized by categories. And so, if you want to study, it's hard to find them on YouTube, so the best thing to do is just go to that web page, and you can go to the links, go back and forth to the links that way, and study by topics. Okay, so perjury of oath. There's a whole bunch of reasons why they're perjuring their oath of office. And it's easy to get a copy of their oath. You just ask for it. When you do the public information request, you want their oath of office. In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas, as a direct descendant of the founders of the Constitution of the United States of America, and as one of the posterity, found in the preamble by right of blood, I hereby declare. I have reason to believe and do believe that Michael R. Collingwood, U.S. Police Officer number 626, is perjuring his oath of office in violation of Texas Penal Code 37.02, perjury. A person commits an offense if with intent to deceive and with knowledge of the statement's meaning, he makes a false statement under oath or swears to the truth of the false statement previously made, and the statement is required or authorized by law to be made under oath. And he makes a false unsworn declaration. An offense under this section is a Class A misdemeanor. By collecting military scrip, Federal Reserve notes in the form of revenue for the city of Euless and their police cart, knowing that they are demanding fake money, military scrip, Federal Reserve notes, forced loans on their warrant letters, making threats of arrest in which they're demanding $282 for the FMFR, failure to maintain financial responsibility, $220 for the registration, no plate, and on each threat letter says you may simply pay by credit card, which means that it's Federal Reserve notes, military scrip, forced loans, and Collingwood's required to know the Constitution for the United States is the supreme law of the land. Article 6, Clause 2. Collingwood's required to know that Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1 of the Constitution of the United States of America requires that only gold or silver coin be made, can be a tender in the payment of a debt. And Collingwood's required to know that U.S. military police cannot ask for gold or silver coin because gold or silver coin is not in general circulation and have not been since 1964. And the Euless Military Police Court may only ask for Federal Reserve notes because that is all that is in general circulation. And Collingwood is required to know that Britain and the City of Euless bonded this case under 17 Code of Federal Regulations, Section 240.15C2-12, for revenue and regulations or property of the United States under the supreme law of the land. And that's Article 4, Section 3, Clause 2. The Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory or other property belonging to the United States. So anything that's regulated is property of the United States, which means the City of Euless is property of the United States, and Federal Reserve notes are for use in the District of Columbia only under the Gold Reserve Act of 1934, which means that Collingwood is bringing District of Columbia codes not exceeding 10 miles square on the land of Texas in violation of Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. And to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district not exceeding 10 miles square, as may by cession of particular states and the acceptance of Congress become the seat of government of the United States, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state. Those are federal enclaves. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. And Collingwood is required to know that the demandant has a common law right to travel with his private property on the public highway. And here's a bunch of court citations that talk about the right to travel. And Collingwood is required to know that the demandant has a right to use consumer goods instead of business equipment under their private international law in his District of Columbia court ruling, which is under UCC 9-109, classification of goods, which means that even under the Uniform Commercial Code, they recognize that common law exists. And under their edicts under martial law called the Texas Constitution, consumer goods like the demandant's private conveyance are not subject to taxation. Legislature by general law shall exempt from ad valorem taxation household goods not held or used for the production of income, and personal effects not held or used for the production of income. That's the Texas Constitution, Article 8, Section 1. Income is corporate profits. Supreme Court said that. Collingwood's required to know that the so-called warrant issued by other city municipal courts is actually a capias, and a capias is not a warrant. Collingwood's required to know that no city in Tarrant County is authorized to enforce the Transportation Code, as evidenced by the email from the Tarrant County County Sheriff Public Information Officer. Therefore, none of the Transportation Code warrants issued by the cities in Tarrant County are valid, and all of them are color of law. And the defendant has a right to ignore anything that is color of law. And this is Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition, page 241. The appearance or semblance without the substance of legal right, misuse of power possessed by virtue of state law, made possible only because wrongdoers clothed with authority of state is action taken under color of law. And as evidenced by the Euless Police Department narrative, the demandant dialed 911 and demanded Tarrant County Sheriff to the scene, and the call went to the Euless switchboard, and Collingwood supervisors, Hurtado and Graham's supervisors, I should say, Hurtado and Collingwood came to the scene as accomplices, as evidenced by the police narrative, and the Tarrant County Sheriff refused to come to the scene, and the defendant read to Collingwood, Hurtado, and Graham. Parts of the Texas Penal Code 3903 telling them they're engaged in official oppression. They're all required to know the Euless military police are not authorized to enforce the Texas Transportation Code, as evidenced by the email from the Tarrant County Sheriff Public Information Officer. True copies of the police narrative and the email are attached here too, all of each of which are incorporated herein by reference in their entirety. against the peace and dignity of the state. They're a bunch of pirates. My contact information, my blog is SovereigntyInternational.wordpress.com. My website is SovereigntyInternational.fyi. My email address is engineerwin@yahoo.com. My YouTube profile is Sovereign Living. My Facebook community page, I deleted it due to censorship on the part of Facebook. My private group, Sovereignty International, is being deleted. I have a private group on freelist.org called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants, and one on Google called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants. Follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International, on Odyssey at Sovereignty International, and on Patreon at Sovereignty International. Misprision of felony. This is one that I filed against every member of the Supreme Court of Texas. I'm an equal opportunity complainer. I filed 4 criminal complaints against every member of the Supreme Court of Texas for the same reasons on this. Obviously, I went and filed all these bar grievances, and you're going to see them all here. And let's see how many. 1, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, 36, 39, 42, 45, 48. So 48 criminal complaints. And they all got dismissed. And all of them, there was allegations of felonies. So obviously they intend, that's called misprision of felony, when they're not bringing it to the attention of some court. And when I file felony criminal complaints and they just blow them off like it's nothing, then and against 48 bar members, you know, so then obviously the bar is supposed to be regulated by the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court, I filed felony criminal complaints against the Supreme Court. I should probably file a felony criminal complaint against Greg Abbott, because he's the executive branch, and they're obviously working for the executive branch. It's all one scam. It's like throwing mud against a wall. You never know what's going to stick. Anyways, misprision of felony. In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas, as a direct descendant of the founders of the Constitution of the United States of America, the supreme law of the land, and as one of the posterity found in the preamble, by right of blood, I hereby declare Deborah Lehrman as an associate justice of the Supreme Court of Texas and a bar member and deemed to know the law. I have reason to believe and do believe that Deborah Lehrman engaged in misprision of felony in violation of 18 United States Code, misprision of felony, Section 4. Whoever having knowledge of actual commission of felony, cognizable by a court of the United States, conceals and does not as soon as possible make known the same to some judge or other person in civil or military authority under the United States shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years or both. Because Lehrman is required to know that the Supreme Court of Texas is required to regulate the State Bar of Texas, and because Lehrman and his bar members, State Bar of Texas subordinates, failed to report the multiple felonies engaged in by bar members, when Lehrman is required to know that no city or county officer is authorized to enforce the transportation code after their military police officers stop the affiant for speeding or expired registration or having a Republic of Texas plate on an automobile, and the affiant filed bar grievances against the State Bar of Texas, against all of Learmon's bar members who are the ringleaders, and the State Bar of Texas said it's okay for their bar members to engage in felonies or other crimes as long as it fails to violate their ethical standards, and they're all required to know that military police are not authorized to enforce the Texas Transportation Code, as evidenced by the email from the Tarrant County Sheriff's Public Information Officer, true copy of which is attached here to, all of which is incorporated herein by reference in its entirety against the peace and dignity of the state. And so that's it. So I filed several criminal complaints against each member of the Supreme Court, and as usual, they all went to the Provost Marshal General in Washington, D.C., and the FBI and the Texas State Police. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International. Don't forget to like this video on YouTube. Don't forget to click the bell next to the subscribe button so you're notified when there's a new upload on Steemit. Don't forget to vote and make your comments. There's the front page of my YouTube channel. The subscribe button is already clicked or it'll be red. But the bell, normally if you click the bell to get notifications, then it'll look like it's vibrating, and it's not, so it needs to be clicked. I have exclusive content available on my website and on Patreon. My website has 2 subscription levels, and I accept cryptocurrencies. The basic subscription level is $49.99 a year for the videos only. The platinum subscription level is $79.99 a year for the videos plus unlimited consultations. But I'm not a liar. Well, I'm an attorney. But I can tell you what I would do under certain circumstances and where to find forms. The only power that the New World Order Satanists have over us is through fraud and deception, and my agenda is to expose it for all our benefit. But I cannot fight all the battles. I need other people being on point. Some of my exclusive website and Patreon content is Arlington Private Information Share, Land Deed Training, Estoppel Certificates Training. I actually ought to put up a new land deed training video here pretty quick, I think, because I've improved my technique a little bit. I've got it down pretty good now. I'm getting pretty consistent. I went and they were harassing me for some, because I went and usually what I'll do is I'll buy the land under a structure like a limited liability company or a trust or something, because the seller usually doesn't want to put the wording in that I want in the deed. So I won't fight with them. I'll just put it under the structure, and then when I'm ready to transfer it to me, I'll put in the wording that I want. Anyways, with the land deed training, I had some property under a trust, and they were, the taxes were $16 a year. So I mean, it wasn't hardly worth the trouble. But then they raised the taxes to like $140 a year, so now it was worth the trouble. And they were harassing me for taxes, threatening foreclosure, all sorts of crap. So I went, it was getting too expensive to mess with it, so I went and transferred it to me as a man, and it's a little bit new procedure. I brought forward all the rights and privileges of the land patent, and when I took it to get it recorded, it was kind of interesting because the clerk there said, "Oh, you're bringing forward all the rights and privileges of the original land patent." And as a man, I said, "Yes, I am." And I haven't heard a peep out of them for property taxes. It's amazing how that works. Anyway, so I had no trouble recording it, and that was in Texas. It was in Montague County, actually. I've actually found that they're actually pretty good about recording stuff. They'll record stuff that other places won't. I mean, it's all expensive. In Texas, it's expensive to record. That's why I like Arizona. In Texas, it's $4 a page, and that adds up when you get a pretty big document. And there's a basic price, and then it's $4 a page. In Arizona, the basic price is $13 for the first 8 pages, I think, and then it's $1 a page after that. So then, you can wind up doing a 250-page document for a reasonable price. $250 is still a lot of money, but it's still a lot less. If you did a document like that in Texas, it'd be like $1,000 or more. Anyways, so I gotta update my land deed training. Anyways, that's all I'm saying. Estoppel certificates training, that's the notice and demand that I send out. Foreclosure estoppel certificates training, corporate denial training, toll roads notice and demand training, invoice training, notice of void judgment training, revocation of signature training, third party witness training, federal habeas corpus training, revocation of voter registration, criminal complaint training. I've got three videos on that, and I need to do a new one because of the new criminal complaints. The new ones that I'm doing are different yet than the other ones. They're shorter. I keep them shorter because, you know, if the guy gets like a inch thick of paperwork, you know, is he going to read it? You know, he might try to read it, but he might go to sleep halfway through. Anyways, so I try and keep it short and sweet, down to 2 pages or 3 pages, or, you know, I mean, the longest ones I got I think are 9 pages, and then there's attachments, of course, but at least the actual complaint is not that long. Other training requests, if there are any that are feasible for me to do that I haven't already done. There's also Northeast Private Information Share videos. There's all forms, files, and other instructions are available for free, linked on my videos and on my website. All exclusive content will be on my website, and you can buy a subscription there. And I've also got the Patreon. And we already talked about that MD Anderson Center this morning. We did the criminal complaints. And the misprision of felony we already did. Hindering prosecution. That's another one I did against the Supreme Court. Any questions? I don't see any there that are relevant. Okay, this hindering prosecution is another one I did with the Supreme Court. Every member of the Supreme Court of Texas. In the name and by authority of the state of Texas, as the direct descendant of the founders of the Constitution for the United States of America, the supreme law of the land, and as one of the posterity found in the preamble by right of blood, I hereby declare. Deborah Lehrman's an associate justice of the Supreme Court of Texas and is a bar member and deemed to know the law. And I have reason to believe and do believe that Deborah Lehrman engaged in hindering prosecution in violation of Texas Penal Code. I can't believe that's not saying, it should be underlined, saying it's spelled wrong. T-E-A-S, I guess T's, eh? Anyways, okay. Texas Penal Code 38.05, hindering prosecution. A person commits an offense if with intent to hinder the arrest, prosecution, conviction, and punishment of another for an offense, or with intent to hinder the arrest, detention, adjudication, or disposition of a child for engaging in delinquent conduct that violates a penal law of the state, or with intent to hinder the arrest of another under the authority of a warrant or capias. Harbors or conceals the other, provides or aids in providing the other with any means of avoiding arrest or effecting arrest, warns the other, I'd say conceals the other, provides them. Except as provided under Section D, an offense of this section is Class A misdemeanor. An offense of this section is a felony of the third degree if the person who is harbored, concealed, provided by means of avoiding arrest or effecting escape, or warned of discovery or apprehension, charged with or convicted of a felony, including an offense charged with or convicted of a felony. So there's several, they're all charged with felonies, okay? Because Deborah Lehrman's required to know, the Supreme Court of Texas is required to regulate the State Bar of Texas because Deborah Lehrman and his State Bar of Texas subordinates failed to report the multiple felonies engaged by bar members. When Lehrman's required to know that no city or county officers authorized to enforce the transportation code after their military police officers stopped the affiant for speeding or expired registration or having a Republic of Texas plate on an automobile, and the affiant filed bar grievances with the State Bar of Texas against all Lehrman's bar members who were the ringleaders, and they were all required to know the military police are not authorized to enforce Texas Transportation Code, as evidenced by the email from the Tarrant County Sheriff Public Information Officer, a true copy of which is attached, all of which is incorporated herein by reference in its entirety. And Lehrman intends that these Bedford Military Police and Grapevine Military Police and Euless Military Police and North Richland Hills Military Police and Lake Worth Military Police and Azle Military Police and Fort Worth Military Police and their police courts, which are actually kangaroo courts, and their bar member handlers engaged in official oppression, impersonating public servants, perjury of oath, abuses of official capacity, aggravated assault, war crimes, torture, reprisals, forced identification, racketeering, violating rights under color of law, conspiracy to threaten, coerce, injury, intimidate me in the free exercise of my rights and immunities, assault, kidnapping, imprisonment of protected persons under international law, sending threats through the mail to protected persons under international law in support of their criminal street gang under Section 7101 of the Texas Penal Code, which makes him their accomplice because it brings in so much business for his so-called court against the peace and dignity of the state. I like that one. Okay, so now we have aggravated assault. Did we do that one yesterday? Does anybody remember? Does anybody have any questions? Okay, this one's again in my lawsuit. In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas, as a direct descendant of the founders of the Constitution of the United States of America, and as one of the posterity found in the preamble by right of blood, I hereby declare. I have reason to believe and do believe that Michael R. Collingwood, U.S. Police Officer, engaged in aggravated assault in violation of Texas Penal Code 22.02. Person commits an offense, uses or exhibits a deadly weapon during a commission of an assault. So it's a second-degree felony. Because he and Timothy Graham stopped the respondent for having a Republic of Texas plate on his automobile while displaying a deadly weapon, and U.S. military police are not authorized to enforce Texas Transportation Code as evidenced by the email from the Tarrant County Sheriff Public Information Officer, a true copy of which is attached here too, all of which is incorporated herein by reference in its entirety, against the peace and dignity of the state. That one's real short. Well, you're going to have to do research in Minnesota, okay? Somebody's asking if this will work in Minnesota. You're going to have to do, it should work, but you're going to have to do research. You got to prove it. You got to prove your case. So it's always, I don't care what state you're in, is get a police report, because they will give you evidence against them, and then file. You have to, what I do is I use their codes against them. So these codes are either federal or Texas, okay? Because I'm in Texas right now, or I'm in Texas normally. Right now I'm in New Jersey actually, but normally I'm in Texas. And so what you have to do is you have to find, instead of Texas codes, you got to find the equivalents in Minnesota. And a lot of the times it's a matter of reading that thing and seeing how you can make it fit what you want to do, and explaining it in a way. You got to use their words, and so you got to use their words and explain it in their words why they committed these felonies. So it will work in Minnesota, but you're going to have to do research in Minnesota statutes to find comparable to the Texas codes, find the Minnesota comparables, and that's the, you're going to have to do, because you got to use, I'm using their codes against them. If you can get 12 people to convene a common law jury, then that's always way better. I had trouble getting 12 people, and I got tired of waiting, and so I went ahead and Randy Kelton is another guy in Texas that he's really good on their codes. And so I kind of use a lot of his material, but I use my own ideas too. Randy Kelton doesn't like some of the stuff I do, but that's okay. He's entitled to his own opinion. And so I go ahead and use his material and use it the way I like to use it. And they don't want to talk to me. So you can use it in Minnesota, but you're going to have to find comparable Minnesota codes to the Texas codes. The rest of it's federal, so that's all the same. But all the states have criminal street gang statutes. They all do. So there's a lot of, you'll find that there's a lot of similar stuff in every state. You just got to find it and quote it the right way, and then use the words that they use. Got to use their words. It's all satanic, really. Common law jury, they don't care about words. They just care about what happened. You know what I mean? Anyways. Okay, so no, there's no filing cost other than your cost to mail them. I sent them to the FBI, the Texas State Police. I sent them to, and I always send them to, you know, the director or the special agent in charge of the FBI or the provost marshal. Send it to a man, okay, or woman, because I want someone I can hold accountable. So I send it, and I just sent it by flat rate box, and to their attention, to them. But you know, there's no cost. There's, like with the court case, when I file them into the court case, there's no cost there. I've already opened it up, and I don't pay filing fees either. And so the case was opened, and there was no filing fee, and now I'm going to file a bunch of stuff into it, and then I'm going to, well, who knows? I want to get that judge removed. I had several judges. I want them out of there, and so they're a bunch of pirates. So there's no filing cost. I'm going to go through one on war crimes. I know I went through one where I accused these lawyers working for the University of Texas war crimes earlier this morning. This is going to be one where, let's see, who is it I'm accusing? A jailer. And where they accuse them of war crimes. And then we'll take a short break, and then to finish off the afternoon, I have a war crimes are everywhere presentation that I'll go through for the rest of the afternoon. So this one here is 7 pages, so it'll probably be about 6 pages of actual, you know, talking. In the name and by authority of the state of Texas, as a direct descendant of the founders of the Constitution of the United States of America, which is the supreme law of the land, as one of the posterity found in the preamble by right of blood, I hereby declare, I have reason to believe and do believe that A. Eccles Kirksey, U.S. jailer, is engaged in war crimes in violation of 18 U.S.C. Code 2441. Whoever, whether inside or outside the United States, commits a war crime in any of the circumstances. Okay, as used in this term, war crime means any conduct, grave breach in any of the international conventions of signed at Geneva, 12 August 1949. And they specifically mention Articles 23, 25, 27, 28 of the Annex of Hague Convention 4, 1907. Okay, so prohibited conduct. Grave breach of Common Article 3 means any conduct constituting a grave breach. The Geneva Conventions, August 12, 1949, there's 4 of them. But the one that we're particularly interested in is the Geneva Convention relative to the protection of civilians in a time of war of 1949. And I can pull that up if you want to see it. Why don't I do that? Okay, so what we have here is the Geneva Convention relative to the protection of civilians in the time of war, August 12th, 1949. So the important part, well, I got them highlighted. Says Article 2, it says the convention shall also apply to all cases of partial or total occupation territory. Article 6, occupying power shall be bound for the duration of the occupation to the extent that their power exercises a function of government in such territory by the provisions of the following articles. To the present convention. So there's a bunch of them, 1 to 12, 27, 29 to 34, 47, 49, 51, 52, there's a bunch of them, and I have them highlighted. And so, Article 8, you can't renounce, you can't give up the protections. No physical or moral coercion, so they can't sit there and try and twist your arm to give information. None of their damn business. And again, you can't give up these protections. So if you do, they're still in violation of the convention. It's a war crime. Taking of hostages. Okay, so when they assault you and as collateral for their Roman cult Sestike trust, that's what they're doing. They're taking you as a hostage for their Roman cult Sestike trust. That's exactly what they're doing. So that's a war crime. Looks like I didn't get them all highlighted here. This one's still valid. This one's valid. This one's valid. This one's valid. this one's valid. See, 1 to 12 are valid. 27, 29 to 34, 47, 49. So we've already got 27. 29 to 34. There's other ones like this 30 is valid, but it doesn't matter. It's not anything that I'm particularly interested in. I think I said 47. Forty-seven, 49, 51, 52, 53, 59. This is why you don't have to listen to sign up for selective service. Like 57, 59. Fifty-one, 52, 53, 59. Sixty-one to 77 and 143. 61 to 77. That means they got to give you due process. Okay, so that's the Geneva Convention. So back to the war crimes. Taking hostages, that's what they're doing. The act of a person who, having knowingly seized or detained one or more persons, threatens to kill, injure, or continue to detain such persons or persons with intent of compelling any nation, person or other than a hostage or group of persons to act or refrain from acting as an explicit or implicit condition for the safety or release of such person or persons. in support of their criminal street gang, and this is Texas Penal Code 7101, and we've already gone through that. A. Eccles Kirksey is required to know that Texas is under military occupation, has been since 1862, when the Union Army invaded Galveston, Texas. Article 1, General Orders 100, which is the Lieber Code. The place or district or country occupied by an enemy stands in consequence of the occupation under martial law of the invading or occupying army, whether any proclamation declaring martial law or any public warning to the inhabitants has been issued or not. And this is international law too. Martial law is international law. Private international law comes from the Roman cult. A. Eccles Kirksey is required to know that the only way martial law ends is by specific mention in a treaty of peace or by special proclamation by the commander-in-chief. Martial law does not cease during the hostile occupation except by special proclamation ordered by the commander-in-chief or by special mention in a treaty of peace. Concluding the war when the occupation of a place or territory continues beyond the conclusion of peace is one of the conditions of the same. A. Eccles Kirksey is required to know that there has been no treaty of peace and there has been no special proclamation by the commander-in-chief, therefore the military occupation continues to this day. A. Eccles Kirksey is required to know that his police are military police with military rank structures and military uniforms. That's under Article 10 of the General Orders 100. Martial law chiefly affects the police in the collection of public revenue and taxes, whether imposed by the expelled government or by the invader, refers mainly to the support and efficiency of the Army, its safety, and the safety of its operations. Why do you think they're always worried about your safety? Be safe. Fuck you. Which is why they're called law enforcement officers, because they're enforcing the martial law. And A. Eccles Kirksey is required to know that his military police get paid in Federal Reserve notes, which are forced loans in military script. Forced loans of 1862 and 1863 in the form of legal tender notes were vital forces in the struggle for national supremacy. And that's Juilliard versus Greenman, U.S. Supreme Court. National supremacy. That's not federal. Federal and national are two different things. Federal means they're co-equal. National means they're not. That's why the word supremacy is there. Okay, and in Article 37 of the General Orders 100, which is the Libra Code, says this rule does not interfere with the right of victorious invader to tax the people or their property, to levy forced loans. Okay, so forced loans is part of the military occupation. E equals courtesy is required to know that he is here as a U.S. citizen, a foreigner, with his U.S. citizen military troops to enforce the martial law. Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, U.S. citizenship is required to be licensed as a peace officer in Texas. You can be a Texas national without being a U.S. citizen. Lots of court cases that talk about that. A equals courtesy is required to know that all Texas codes are edicts under martial law, and this is taken from the non-ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge A.H. Ellett of the Utah Supreme Court in the case Diet versus Turner. It should also be noted here that the several state legislatures, county boards of commissioners, and city councils are constantly legislating to please the edicts of the federal government, the occupying force. Actually, it should be called the national government. And that their legislation in this sense is not an exercise of state sovereignty, but instead a compliance with the edicts of the military force which occupies the several states, and consequently are edicts of martial law rule. And in Article 13 of the Libra Code says military jurisdictions two kinds. First, that which is conferred by statute, so all statute are edicts under martial law. Second, that which is derived from the common law of war. In other words, you have the right to defend yourself. A equals courtesy is required to know that he and his U.S. military police officers are engaged in war crimes against the demandant by taking reprisals against the demandant for his political beliefs. And they pillaged my property. By pillaging his property. Reprisals against protected persons and their property are prohibited. Article 33 of the Geneva Convention. We just looked at that. Article 33 is right here. That's one of the effective articles that's effective for the entire occupation. All measures of intimidation or terrorism are prohibited. Maybe I should put that in there too. And terrorizing him. Quite frankly, I wasn't terrorized, but they don't need to know that. They need to think they're terrorizing me. Article 27. Without prejudice to the provisions relating to their state of health, age, sex, all protected persons shall be treated with the same consideration by the party to the conflict in whose power they are, without any adverse distinction based in particular on race, religion, or political opinion. And they attacked me because I had a Republic of Texas plate. That's a political opinion. with their torture of the demanded in extremely cold rooms with no clothing or blankets, force-feeding poisons, fluoridated water, medical experiments to coerce him information from him. Article 31 and Article 32. No physical or moral coercion shall be exercised against protected persons, in particular to obtain information from them or from third parties. And so they're coercing information from me because they wanted my identification. It's none of their damn business. Contracting parties specifically agree that each of them is prohibited from taking any measure of such character as to cause physical suffering or extermination of protected persons in their hands. This prohibition applies not only to murder, torture, corporal punishment, mutilation, medical or scientific experiments not necessitated by medical treatment of a protected person, but also to any other measures of brutality, whether applied by civilian or military agents. Article 32. Another war crime. And while the foreign United States has failed to accede to the Rome Statute, Canada has acceded to the Rome Statute, by the way. For the International Criminal Courts, it's still useful to describe war crimes. Crimes against humanity, enslavement, imprisonment, or other severe deprivation of physical liberty in violation of fundamental rules of international law, torture, persecution of any identifiable group or collectivity on political, racial, national, or religious gender. As defined in paragraph 3, or other grounds that are universally recognized as impermissible under international law in connection with any act referred to in this paragraph or any crime within the jurisdiction of the court. So they're persecuting me because I have a Republic of Texas plate on my car. That's political, and that's national because I'm a Texas national, not a U.S. citizen, and we happen to be Christians. And A. Eccles Kirksey and his military police are engaged in when they stopped the demandant for having a Republic of Texas plate on an automobile and imprisoned him. He, the prisoner, has as a consequence of his crime not only forfeited his liberty but all his personal rights except those which the law and its humanity afford him. He is for the time being a slave of the state. And they routinely deny due process by failing to provide an examining trial as required by their own edicts under martial law. With their forced plea, when they know the demandant produced a Republic of Texas diplomatic identification card, and they're all required to know that military police are not authorized to enforce the transportation code. Therefore, they had no probable cause to make the arrest in the first place. And Eccles Kirksey is required to know that the so-called warrant issued by other city municipal courts is actually a capias, and a capias is not a warrant, and then imprisonment for fake warrants issued by other criminal corporations. Capias is not a warrant of arrest, because a capias is a debt instrument, which means it's a civil matter. And Eccles Kirksey is required to know that the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, citing cases from the U.S. Supreme Court, 5th, 7th, 8th, and 9th Circuits, held that by definition probable cause to arrest can only exist in relation to criminal conduct. Civil disputes cannot give rise to probable cause. And their military police officers, under instructions from their military chief of police Mike Brown and their bar member handlers Stacy White, Wayne K. Olson, Lacey Britton, stopped the demandant for transportation code offenses like having a Republic of Texas plate on an automobile, expired registration, or speeding, and their military police are not authorized to enforce Texas transportation code, as evidenced by the email from the Tarrant County Sheriff Public Information Officers. True copies of the some warrant threat letters and email are attached hereto, all of each of which are incorporated herein by reference in their entirety. And they dragged the demandant into their torture chamber jail, where they engaged in torture with their forced fingerprinting, their force feeding poisons, medical experiments, their forced identification, their aggravated kidnappings, aggravated assaults, and their threats and other denials of due process, all of which is for revenue for their Federal Reserve notes, forced loans, military script for their criminal corporations: the City of Colleyville, City of North Richland Hills, City of Grapevine, City of Lake Worth, City of Bedford, City of Euless, City of Azle, City of Fort Worth, and Deer Park Cash Cow LLC, masquerading as State of Texas, against the peace and dignity of the state. So that's the one against the pigs. Does anybody have any questions? Like I said, you can watch this YouTube video again if you want to go over the process, but all it is you make up the criminal complaints and you serve them on them. It's not really complicated. You build a case, like I said. You build a case, you get a police report, you use it as evidence. There's no need to talk to them. I don't like to talk to them. You're wasting your time. They're low intelligence thugs. I just send it to the FBI, get the FBI to go down and talk to them. And the Texas State Police to go down and talk to them. And the Provost Marshal General to go down and talk to them. I don't talk to them. I don't go to their kangaroo court. I don't talk to them. I send them criminal complaints for multiple felonies to everybody and their brother. That's why when their cops stop me and they look at my Republic of Texas diplomatic ID, they say, "Glenn Fern, you're Glenn Fern." Because somebody went down and talked to their chief of police, and their chief of police talked to all his hired thugs and said, "Leave Glenn Fern alone." That's what we talked about yesterday. I don't know, you were on here yesterday. That's why I use a private mailbox. So then they don't know where to find me. They don't know where I'm going to be. And I tell them I travel a lot. Well, I think that we got another 45 minutes, and it's hardly enough time to do a video. No, I don't do fee schedules. If they can presume you want Federal Reserve notes put you into international law. I don't do fee schedules, I just file the criminal complaints. If you do a fee schedule, you're telling them, "Oh, I want to do commerce." Oh, and then they're pigs. They'll say, "Okay, let's do commerce." And they'll arrest your butt and take you down and put you in jail because you want to do commerce. I don't do fee schedules. I file the criminal complaints for felonies. And I let the FBI and the Texas State Police and the U.S. Provost Marshal General go down and talk to them. And it was like happened in Bedford. The mayor of Bedford, you know, they're never going to tell me anything, okay? And but the mayor of Bedford told us that the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement raided the Bedford Police Department and fired everybody in the police department except for 2 people. And I think that's because of what I did. I don't know for sure. I have no proof. But it's amazing how they don't want to talk to me now. And I kind of like that. You know, I did a silver bond a long time ago and I've never used it. Again, they're a bunch of pirates, okay? They don't want silver. They want Federal Reserve notes. That's the only thing they can ask for, because Federal Reserve notes is all that's in circulation. They're bringing District of Columbia codes on the land of Texas or the land of Arizona or the land of, in your case, Wisconsin, I guess. And so wherever it is, they're bringing District of Columbia codes on the land of wherever, everywhere it's not supposed to be. And so you have to break it off in their ass. We got 45 minutes left, and we can either quit early, and we'll go through this PowerPoint presentation, or we'll go through this PowerPoint presentation on war crimes. It's war crimes are everywhere. We can go through that. That's probably going to take more than 45 minutes, though, quite frankly. It's 139 slides. The fake money is absolutely crucial to the dictatorship. So I think what we'll do is, if anybody has any questions, we'll take any questions that you have. Otherwise, we'll probably quit early today and start on this war crimes are everywhere presentation tomorrow. Yeah, I don't know what kind of notice you sent to them. My notice starts off, I accept your oath of office, and it's just point by point, paragraph by paragraph, and I sent it by registered mail, so I have proof it was sent. And it's about 20 pages, and I go through and explain the law to them. And the last paragraph says you're now put into estoppel. Actually, one of the last paragraphs says you're now put into estoppel. If you do anything to me, then you'll be guilty of multiple felonies. And oh, by the way, I understand my duty to come to your aid if requested. And there's a quote from Posse Comitatus that everybody over the age of 15 is on a posse. And I tell them I'll be there for you anytime, any place. So I don't know what kind of notice you sent, but that's what my notice says. Mine's about 20 pages. Sounds like they didn't like your notice. Well, again, you have to assume they're going to honor their oath. So I always tell them I accept your oath of office, and explain the law to them, and tell them I'll be there for you anytime, any place. I understand my duty to come to your aid when called upon. I've never had a problem with it. Yeah, I don't know about bill of particulars for the gold they come for. I don't know anything about that. The notice and demand, there's a generic one on my website on the free documents. There's free videos and free documents links on my website. There's one called Notice and Demand. I haven't sent too many of those notice and demands out because they don't seem to do much good anymore because of the police state, at least in Texas, and so I just go after them with the criminal complaints. Besides, it gets expensive. I have to send those notice and demands by registered mail, and that costs a lot of money these days. And so I've been out of work since 2015, so I don't have a lot of money to spend. So I just do the criminal complaints, and that's expensive enough anyways by itself. Yeah, you know, the thing is that they assault you with their Roman cult cestacate trust, and so whether you actually give it to them or they'll just steal it out of the trust account, and that's why I just file criminal complaints against them. If they force me to sign anything, I just print there without prejudice, and which means there's no contract, and I think that's another reason they don't want to talk to me, because they don't ever get any money out of me either. I'm not sure that I would send it to the DA. I'd rather send it to the FBI and the Texas State Police and have them go down and talk to the DA. But I do complain about the DAs. I do complain about the judges and the pigs. And well, you see the criminal complaints. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. If you can't read, there's nothing I can do to help you. I don't file liens because I haven't seen any of them work. They cost a lot of money. I've done commercial liens. They cost a lot of money to do them, and I haven't seen them work. I've never, ever heard of anybody collecting anything on a commercial lien. I use 2-cent mail or tax per queue, depending on where I'm sending it to. Yeah, it depends on where I'm going to send it to. And it depends. Sometimes I want tracking. And I won't necessarily get tracking with the post office unless I pay for the postage. Pay their commercial paper for the postage. Sometimes I want tracking. You know, there's a lot of stuff that people have their theories, and you know, I'm just telling you stuff that I've done that's worked. As far as, you know, Secretary of State, lien for bond, I've never seen anybody collect on a bond. When I make an affidavit, I do not put all rights reserved. Okay, that's like nullifying your affidavit. That's like making your signature so it's not there. You look at my criminal complaints, then I don't put any of that stuff there. If you want to have it have power, then you don't put without prejudice or all rights reserved or any of that stuff. You want it to have power, and otherwise you're basically sending them. You're wasting your money on your printing and your postage, because they just put it in a shredder because it doesn't mean anything. If they're forcing you to sign something, then yes, put all rights reserved. Or better yet, without prejudice. That's when I put that stuff down there. When I want to sign an affidavit or a document that I want to sign, then I don't put any of that stuff. Not withhold prejudice, it's without prejudice. Look it up in the Uniform Commercial Code. That's when they're forcing you to sign something. When they're forcing me to sign something, I don't even sign it. I just print without prejudice. That's all I do. And that means there's no contract. And under Title 1, Section 1, a signature is a mark. And so they have to accept it. That signature can be an X. It can be anything. Never heard of Christopher Hauser. I've signed plea bargains by putting without prejudice on it. And the judge saw it, and the judge signed it. Yes, Title 1, Section 1 of U.S. Code. That's also where it says that he is she and one is many and many is one. It says a bunch of things. It says that encompass mentis is insane. That's why when someone goes in there and starts talking about common law and then also talks about Uniform Commercial Code in the same breath, then the judge says you need your head examined. I don't pay any attention to quantum parse syntax grammar. There's definitely lots of satanic stuff out there. Actually, the word income is defined by the Supreme Court as corporate profits. So, you know, You know, I don't deal with the IRS, quite frankly. I haven't in a long time, and they don't want to talk to me. I took them to the Supreme Court twice, and they don't want to talk to me, and I kind of like it that way. So as far as non-resident alien and all the rest of that stuff with the IRS, you know, I don't, it's not something I deal with. If the IRS wants to contact me, what they'll do, I can tell you right now what they'll do. They've already done it. They'll send me a request to file, and then I'll send them a 10-page letter telling them why I'm not required to file. And under their codes, if you file or otherwise respond, then there's nothing they can do criminally. Okay, that's called willful failure to file. If you have an honest belief you're not required to file, then they can't go after you criminally. So then their only remedies to go after me civilly. Well, you know, I don't own anything. You know, I keep stuff in trusts. I manage trusts, and any stuff I do own is absolute title, like land, and they don't want to talk to me. And so there's nothing that's ever reported on me, and so that's the end of the discussion as far as the IRS is concerned. That's why I put in my videos. That I prefer gold or silver coin, but as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept the fake money, the military script, the IOUs, the Federal Reserve notes. That's because there's a Supreme Court case from 1875 called U.S. versus Carlisle. It says that everyone and everything not privileged is sovereign. And so when you partake of their privilege, as in discharging debt with limited liability with the use of Federal Reserve notes, then that's a privilege. And so I tell them that I don't want your privilege. I can accept the fake money, and not because I want to, because I have to. It's not a privilege. Yeah, I don't use IRS forms. I use my own forms. I got a 1020 form that I made up. Actually, a friend of mine made up. I really like it. Well, I'm not a state citizen, but I am a state national. Like I said, I send the criminal complaints to the FBI and the Texas State Police and the Provost Marshal General in Washington, D.C. That's the only other place I send them to is the State Commission on Law Enforcement, Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. That's it. I don't send it to anybody else. my understanding is as long as your vehicle's paid off, you should be able to remove it from the rolls, I guess you might say, the registration rolls. But then you got to put your own private plate on it. I have a Patreon page that's Sovereign Living. Sovereignty International, I should say. Sovereignty International, not Sovereign Living. Yeah, Sovereignty International. I'm not sure about who you're talking about. I remember there's a guy by the name of Sam, what was his name? Black guy that talked about it. But I don't know how to get in touch with him. That video is on my YouTube channel. I'm not sure if I have a link to that on my website or not.